If you think that we made this video last year, you'd be right. Because 1 year ago, we made a video that I actually am pretty proud of. We spoke about how the Vancouver Canucks still have, but they had in their system at the time, a guy that was supposed to be the first overall pick. You can tell from the title, the thumbnail, it's all in the metadata of this video too. Today we're talking about Aatu Raty and how everything has gone for this player 1 year after being pretty much in this spot, where a lot of folks, myself included, were wondering what he would be, how he would develop, this and that. This is all coming 4 years now actually, after Aatu Raty was supposed to go first overall in 2021. We've been making videos about this guy being a first overall pick for years. Literally. If you go over to the franchise generational lists that we used to make here on this YouTube channel, some of my most successful videos, by the way, a lot of folks do ask, hey, can you remake this kind of a video? And honestly, it's really difficult to do because it's the most time-consuming kind of content that you can make. But if you check out the 2015-2022 franchise generational elite tier list, you will see that we had Aatu Raty right there in the 2021 elite franchise section. It wasn't just bare bones elite franchise generational, there were tiers to it. Elite had a bunch of dudes, elite franchise had some guys, and then franchise, you had Eichel, Matthews, Pedersen, Kakko, Jack Hughes all up in there, Dahlin, McDavid, and then even in 2022, franchise generational, Savoy, Wright, and Lambert were all in that conversation. This was back in 2019, folks. This is way before we knew of Owen Power and Juraj Slafkovsky and all them. But Aatu Raty was in that elite franchise territory in 2021. He was one of the top-ranked players. But now, we all know Aatu Raty not as a first overall pick, but as a Vancouver Canucks guy, who ended up slipping to the 52nd overall spot because he had a very underwhelming draft-eligible season. Things didn't go well for him in terms of his league play. He didn't produce many more points than the previous year, and he got cut from the World Junior team. Not great for a guy who had made the team beforehand and who was still a junior. Things were not looking all too great for Raty when he slipped in the draft all the way down to 52, despite the fact that he was projected to go somewhere towards the middle to the end of the first round. McQueen's had him at 12, future considerations at 17. I mean, he was still ranked as the third best European skater by NHL Central Scouting, but that meant nothing because he slipped all the way to round 2. The Islanders ended up taking him. He developed a little bit in the Bridgeport and New York systems before quickly getting traded over to Vancouver in the Bo Horvat trade. Aatu Raty then finished off that season with 12 points in 25 Abbotsford Canucks games. He had a point in 3 Vancouver Canucks games, and then had a full season with the Abby Canucks, scoring 52 points in 72 games. At this point, at the end of the 23-24 campaign, we made this video, talking about how Raty went from first overall caliber to being a Vancouver dude, and we were all hyping up what this guy would be able to do next. Lo and behold, Aatu Raty had a very good season in 2024-2025. He was a point per game with the Abby Canucks in the AHL, 17 goals and 23 assists for 40 points, and he was also at half a point a game in the postseason. Might I remind you, though, he didn't really play too many games in the postseason. The guy was injured for most of it. But he still was a part of the Abby squad that was able to get that dub, get the championship. You kind of have to think about it now. It's like, wow, the Abbotsford Canucks were able to win without Aatu Raty, and they also won the championship without Elias Pettersson either. So that was just a really good team. But the best part of Aatu Raty's 2024-2025 was his Vancouver Canucks stint. He had 11 points in 33 games with the Vancouver Canucks, honestly excelling in what was an oddly ineffective and sort of subdued Rick Tocchet system. Throughout the month of April here, you started to see Raty get more points. He had some multi-goal games in there. He had multi-point games. He was getting 12 to 13 minutes a night as a middle six center for the Vancouver Canucks. And I get it, he's not a rookie anymore. This is a guy who is already fulfilled his Calder eligibility. He's no longer going to have that right to his name, but he's a guy who, coming in and out of the Canucks lineup and just being a serviceable middle six guy, proved a lot more towards the middle and ending parts of the season that he can provide value, and he can be a versatile player, and he can play with some pace, and he can win some faceoffs once in a while. You want him to improve that a little bit more, but this is a guy who, ever since he was a younger prospect, ever since we ranked him as an elite franchise guy back in 2021, Aatu Raty was supposed to be sort of that dynamic, kind of two-way responsible Finnish center. Think Alex Barkov, but with a little less defensive qualities and a little more offensive pizzazz. That was sort of the profile we had of this guy back in 2019 when scouts and analysts were already talking about him as if he was going to be the next best thing. I mean, Aatu Raty ended up slipping really hard in his draft-eligible year, and that totally damned him from the reputation that a first overall pick generally gets, but there still are some really good qualities in his game. I'm not saying he ever becomes like that Barkov light, maybe, I don't know, who else was in this tier list over here? Elite franchise, so I don't think that Aatu Raty is going to be the same caliber of player as a Lucas Raymond or Quinn Hughes or a Cale Makar or whatever. He's not going to do that, but if he can be a quality middle to even top six caliber center for Vancouver, I think the sky could be the limit for this dude. He is only 22 years old. You know, everybody's talking about how the Vancouver Canucks need a second-line center. Sure, Aatu Raty was young, and he barely has any experience playing in the top six, but there were some moments throughout the course of the season where he did get some cups of coffee with more minutes, and he didn't look too out of place. And I wonder, long-term, if second-line center is even going to be a problem if you got Pettersson and maybe a fully developed and confident Aatu Raty stepping in there. Let's head over onto Dobber Prospects and read one of the later scouting reports for Aatu Raty as published by Mark Henry. Let's take a look at November 2024, then we'll do 2025 March, and then we'll do August 2025 March. Back in November, this is what Nick Orr wrote about. Raty made an opening night roster stint for the Vancouver Canucks in 24-25. He impressed throughout the preseason as he showed tenacity and a solid two-way game. He again played well in the first 3 regular season games. He tallied 1 point, but made strong plays along the boards and in the defensive zone. However, he struggled to stay consistent from shift to shift, which ultimately led to him being sent back down. In Abbotsford, Raty dominates games. He drives play offensively and is a step ahead of everyone when on the ice. Raty should be featured more often in Vancouver as the season progresses. In March, this is what was written about. He played very well in the AHL with 38 points in 39 games. He has continued to play a big, heavy game that is backed by a nice scoring prowess. His big frame allows him to overpower opponents and get to the dirty areas. Additionally, he is an extremely effective two-way player, routinely disrupting plays and tracking back to defensive zones. Raty will play a massive role in Abbotsford's Calder Cup run and may find himself a part of Vancouver's playoff run if needed. Yeah, sorry, Nick, but Raty didn't do any of those. He wasn't really a big part in the Abby Canucks run because he was injured, and Vancouver didn't make the playoffs. Oh boy. Now, let's go out there and read Mark Henry's response to Raty from August 2025. The Canucks re-signed him to a contract worth $15 million after a strong 24-25 season, which ended with him being a part of the Calder Cup championship run. The 22-year-old Raty will have a strong chance of earning a full-time role in the bottom six capacity with power play usage and the potential to move into the middle six role with the Vancouver Canucks. He has slowly developed into a fantasy option and should be rostered in all dynasty leagues. Keep an eye on him early in 25-26. He could become valuable in season-long leagues if everything goes well. Raty could be in for a significant pay increase after this contract expires, should he reach the potential he was touted to have leading up to his draft year. So my question to you is, does he ever get there? Is that possible? What are your thoughts on Aatu Raty? Let me know in the comments section all your opinions about this guy and how he looks to be on the cusp of breaking out. I hope you enjoyed this Swedish Ash Rolls 99. And bye.